But meantime, the White House says it will soon reach a decision about how to respond to a chemical attack in Syria they say was instigated by the government of Bashar al-Assad. It will apparently reach that decision, even though so far we do not have proof that Assad was behind it. Of course, we'll keep you posted. If the U.S. does intervene in Syria, however, it could rapidly put this country in direct conflict with Russia, which for many years has backed the Assad regime. And unlike Assad, Russia has a vast arsenal of nuclear weapons. So what is likely to happen? What should we be worried about? Stephen Cohen is an editor at The Nation, a professor emeritus of Russian studies at NYU and Princeton, one of the most famous professors of Russian studies there is, and he joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on. How worrisome, you've followed the relationship between the U.S. and Russia for decades, how worrisome is this moment?
More worried than I've ever been for nearly 50 years of studying and participating in U.S.-Russian relations. I think the situation, your generation was born after the Cuban Missile Crisis, but you were taught in school, as were my children, that the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 was the moment when we came closest ever to nuclear war with Russia. And the learned lesson was supposed to be we should never get there again, and we are very close, and here's why. If Trump or somebody sends these missiles against Syria, there are Russian soldiers embedded in almost all Syrian army units, even in dormitories. If, and this I know because Moscow has said so, if Russians die, if Damascus is attacked, the capital of Syria, Russia will retaliate with its excellent weapons, every bit as good as ours. Some people say in some regards, in missile technology, better. Russia will strike, Americans in Syria will die, and we will be where we have never, ever, ever been with Russia, killing each other, bearing in mind that both nations are laden with nuclear weapons. So I am more worried than I have ever been in my life, at least since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
So U.S. forces have killed over 200 Russian citizens in Syria in recent weeks.
Right.
You heard American officials boasting about that just the other day.
Yeah.
Is there some reason to think that helps the United States? Do we benefit in some way by killing Russians in Syria?
Not that I can think of, any more than Russians would benefit from killing Americans anywhere. That's always been a no-no, Tucker. I mean, that's been a no-no throughout the first 40-year Cold War. Why would anybody even think of it? But you've asked a really good question. After that happened, we don't know how many Russians died. The Russians let it pass. But they said, if it ever happens again, we will retaliate, because those Russians were killed with American-operated missiles. And they have said, and by they I mean all the way up to the Kremlin, we will retaliate. And since Americans are still there manning those Syrian units, that is why what happened the first time when the Russians let it pass, the killing of Russians, won't happen again. Let me add something that may not be known to you or your viewers. It is a deeply held belief, whether they're right or wrong, it's a belief, in the Kremlin, in the Russian political class, that the United States, our country, has waged political, diplomatic, economic war against Russia for at least 10 years. And the attitude in Moscow, expressed daily, is we've had enough. You could interpret that for what you want.
Yeah, I still am totally confused as to how this helps us in any way at all, but I appreciate the warning, and I think warnings from you should be taken seriously. Professor, thank you for this.